Why do we stink at explaining our faith? Have you ever tried to explain your faith to someone and felt like an epic failure? We've probably all felt like that at some point in time. I know I certainly have. Let's talk about why. I want to share with you 5 reasons why you might stink at sharing your faith. And the first one is this. Hey, it may not even be your fault. Sometimes, no matter what you say or how well you say it, the other person may not be willing to listen. And I think about how Jesus used to say, let him who has ears to hear, let him hear. And there were plenty of people who didn't, and he was Jesus. You're not going to do any better than him. Sometimes you just have to understand that the issue isn't in your explaining, but rather in the other person's refusal to listen. Number 2, you don't know what you're talking about. Let's face it, this can happen. Sometimes we can have faith, but not really be able to articulate it or know how to explain it. And this may sound like the worst thing in the world, but the reality is it's not the end of the world because you can learn. The truth is, if you have a faith, even without being some great apologist or being able to explain everything, that says something about who you are. You have a childlike faith, and that's good. But the Bible tells us that we should be ready to give a defense for the hope that we have. 1 Peter 3:15 says, but in your hearts honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that's in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect. So it's okay if that's where you are, but sooner or later, you will need to be able to offer an explanation to why you are a Christian and especially a Catholic other than, I don't know, I was just raised that way. Maybe it's time to start reading some apologetics books or do a deep dive into the catechism. Join a Bible study or start watching some debates online. Look for answers to the questions people keep asking you and make yourself ready. Number 3, you're afraid. Look, I get it. What if you mess up? What if you say the wrong thing? We can all feel unworthy at times, and it's very easy to get intimidated when you feel like you're being put on the spot. So often the temptation is to either say as little as possible or to somehow give an answer that the other person won't argue with. I remember once I heard a famous Catholic guy talking to a famous non-Christian guy, and he asked the famous Catholic guy if Jesus was the only way to heaven. And his answer was, well, he's the privileged way. Now, I can't judge this man's heart because I know he knows better, but I think he was just afraid of the backlash if he said the truth about what the church taught. And sometimes we can just let fear overcome us and we buckle. It's happened to me before too. So I can't throw stones at him, but it's definitely something to be aware of. Number 4, your life doesn't match up with what you say. See, if you say one thing but live another thing, people will default to believing what you do, not what you say. That's just how it is. I once had an Uber driver who drove me around in this dirty, beat up, disgusting van, give me financial advice the entire trip. And at the end of the trip, he said, hey, can I send you some information about the investment program that I'm involved in that helps me make money? And I'm looking at this guy and I'm thinking, well, if you were so smart, why are you driving around in this beat up old car? No thanks. Or we all have that super unhealthy, out of shape person in our lives that can't stop giving us advice on what we should or shouldn't eat. How seriously do we take that person? Now, let's turn that around. If we want to give people an explanation about our faith, but we don't live out what we say and our lives don't seem to be affected by it, then we should expect people to not take us seriously either. Number 5, you attack too much. When you share your faith, it's important to be gracious and clear. And too many times we get aggressive and rude. I know I've made this mistake plenty of times. Sometimes we just get so tired of being attacked that we act like wounded animals backed into a corner. But there's a difference between responding to an attack and having a normal conversation about your faith. It's important to know the difference. See, when you have a civil conversation with someone who just wants to know about your faith because they're curious and interested, and you approach them in this defensive manner like it's some kind of war, they're not going to want to talk to you anymore. So talk about your faith like a normal person. Use normal language. Don't come across as some kind of know-it-all with a condescending tone and an arrogant attitude using words and phrases that you think are going to impress people with your intellect. Just be a normal person and share your faith. And after they've processed what you've said, they might want to come back and ask for more. So leave the door open for that. Don't try to hit everybody with everything all at once. And this kind of goes to a bonus item. Share your faith in small chunks. Don't try to force the entire catechism on somebody in one conversation. Give it some time. Let the Holy Spirit guide you. He will do a way better job speaking through you than you will do by yourself. So be led by God. Be a good listener as well. People don't want to listen to you unless they know you're willing to listen to them. So ask them questions about what do they believe and why, and then share your perspective in a conversational way. See, oftentimes we are in such a hurry to try to make all of our points that we end up arguing about things that aren't even being challenged or answering questions that aren't being asked. So go with the flow. Learn when to lead and when to respond, and be patient, genuine, loving, and clear. And I just bet you'll see better results when sharing your faith. Thanks so much for listening, friends. Take care, and God bless.